But then he does something else. And dude, hold on, dude. I'm going to call you dude. I know you're a judge. Dude, when you say, okay, now all the reporters get out, because he wants to do something that he could deny that he did. Welcome back to Under Oath.
The last time we were here, if I recall correctly, I believe I made a prediction, and I am sad to announce. I'm sad to announce that I was wrong.
What was
wrong?
What was that one?
Wrong.
Could you add 2 more into that one?
Wrong.
Okay.
And
what was my prediction? What was my prediction?
It turns out your prediction was more accurate than my prediction.
Okay. And that prediction concerned...
Well, in my defense, my prediction was based on just the actual law and the legal proceeding.
Have you not learned anything in 20 years of practicing law?
I guess I have not. I think I've learned a lot of law, but I think I still need to probably learn a lot on human nature.
I'd like to replay. I wish they taped our first times together when we were in courtroom back when we were lowly public defenders back in 1997. Seven. Where Craig would go walk up. He'd spend 4 hours preparing these huge bits of case law. He'd go out, he'd have 50 cases.
Trial briefs.
And he'd walk right in front of the judge and go, Your Honor, and he'd make this big argument. The state attorney would go, I don't think that's applicable. And the judge would go, I've read these cases. I'm going to rule with the state. And you kept saying to me, but I'm right with the law.
I was right, though. I really and truly was.
And
it did not assist in those cases.
Okay.
So you would think that I would have learned then, right? Right? Is that the point you're making? That I should have learned my lesson, that it is not, you have to be more than just right with the law?
Listen, it's
Other
okay to have faith.
It's
okay to have faith. You're an optimist. It's okay to have faith.
That is true. I am an optimist.
I'm a realist. I look at the total situation and going, how am I going to get screwed? Which isn't a pessimist, because being in as many courtrooms as I'm in, that is always a possibility. Even being absolutely right. And let me just read this. Donald Trump was found guilty on 34 felony counts of business fraud. His conviction was the result of a trial which was held in New York City. The sentence is scheduled for July 11th, 2024, only days before the Republican National Convention. That was the final result. Now, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to repeat my prediction. My prediction was based solely on inherent flaws in our system. And that was, you have a partisan judge who controls everything from jury instructions to the way witnesses are going to testify to what jury's going to hear or not hear. And you also have a jury made up of 12 people, all from the Democratic Party.
From Manhattan.
some of who had clear conflicts.
Is it 97% Democrat in Manhattan?
It's big. It's a big number.
It's 97 or 98. The chance of you getting a conservative or a non-Democrat on your jury is next to nothing.
They had 0. And based on those facts alone, I said these people, and there was a break. They had a week off. I said, there's no way these guys are going home, looking at their family members, looking at people who hate President Trump. They hate him. There's no way they're going to come back and go, well, I followed the law and I did these things. All those people would be ostracized from whatever family, business relationships, political relationships. There's no way they could ever show their face.
And what do we call that when we are certain that a particular county is so biased that the defendant can't get a fair trial? What is the appropriate response as a defense attorney to that? Mr. Kaufman.
The appropriate response, which was used in this case, was, listen, there's no way I can get a fair trial. There's no jury of my peers here. We need to move this to a place where I can actually get a fair trial. And that motion was denied.
Change of venue motion.
Change of venue. And now...
Right? I mean, that's what we would have done if we were lawyers in this situation.
I imagine what it would be like for me to sit in that trial by President Trump and think to myself, what can I do here? And I would have looked at that jury. I would have stood in that courtroom and I would have gone, I'm screwed. No matter what evidence I have, I would have felt screwed, because even if I was right, there's no way It's a lose-lose. I couldn't have won it.
So do you agree then the failure for the judge to agree to move the venue was improper?
It's a tough decision, but I think in this case, I don't see a way around it. And we've had this, and people ask change of venue, and a lot of our listeners don't understand this. Let's say it was a heinous murder in the city, and everyone loved this girl. That's the reason you move a trial on most parts when you hear about it. Trials have been moved for obviously political reasons. They move for a bunch of reasons. But in this case, if it's impossible to get a fair jury in the county, then you have to move it. And I've had cases where they've moved it. I've seen these issues where where a judge goes, listen, there's a conflict. We're going to do this in Polk County or a county on the outskirts. But I don't see how this trial could have been, no matter what you think.
So mistake number one, you and I both agree, then the judge made a mistake by not allowing them to move venue.
That's mistake number one.
Of course, he wouldn't have been the judge then, and he wanted to keep the case, even though he probably shouldn't have been the judge, which is the second thing that you would do as a criminal defense attorney, which is what?
Second
Jeff,
issue
you
is
think that the judge is biased?
Second issue is the judge needs to recuse himself. That happens in a case where a judge has a financial interest, a political interest, he's motivated by somebody in his family who has interest. For example, even as simple as a lot of judges who have, let's say, pension funds, and that pension fund could be holding a stock by a company that is tangentially related to this case, even that far down, judges have to recuse themselves.
And it just so happens that this judge's daughter, what was her job, Jeff? The judge's daughter.
She owns a marketing company that makes a significant amount of revenue off the Democratic Party through running fundraisers, and this for major Democrats.
Fair to describe her as a major fundraiser for the Democratic Party. Is that fair?
It's fair, but here's the thing. If she would have also been a fundraiser for the Republican Party, I would have gone, well, she takes anybody's money. But in this case, she is a major player in New York for the Democratic Party.
And what you guys might not understand is the judge's duty, at least in Florida, and Jeff, you can speak to New York.
Everywhere. It's not. It's everywhere. It's New York.
But my understanding of the judge's duty when he is presented with a motion to recuse himself is there something about me handling this case that would give the appearance of bias? Because to protect the integrity of the court system, we have to eliminate even the appearance, even though I know that I'm not going to be biased myself because I just have that much integrity and no one can buy me off, and I'm not going to let my personal feelings affect the case at all. Even if I know that about myself, if I think that there's something about this case that would make it look inappropriate for me to handle it, I have to recuse myself.
Okay. I've got venue at, let's say it's a 75% should have been moved. Recusal, it's 100%. There's no way that as a judge, you stay on this case. And in fact, from what I've read and from what I've been told, he was warned about this before it was even put on the docket, that there was an opportunity for him not to, before it even came, to go, no, I'm not doing it. And here's the thing. Our system is skewed. And this is, I'm going to say this. Judges are appointed to the federal bench by presidents. Example, if President Trump gets reelected, this judge, there's zero chance he would ever get bumped up to the federal bench. If Biden stays in his job, there's a good chance this guy gets bumped up.
This guy's going straight to the Supreme Court. What are you talking about?
But
of course he is.
A lot of people don't get that. Federal judges are basically picked by the president, and then it has to be cleared through Congress. And as you know, for example, when Trump was president, he had a record number of federal appointed judges.
3 Supreme Court judges.
Well, I'm not talking just the Supreme. I'm talking federal court judges. Those are the lower courts, federal judges. Now, Biden, in his term, he's actually probably appointed close to, if not more, than what Trump did. And as you've learned through, what's been going on over the last 3 years, depending where a case is brought, It's a huge deal on whether it will pass or not, whether it be gun rights, whether it be abortion rights, whether it be anything. And if you put it in front of a judge appointed by a certain political party, most likely the ruling will follow the lines of that political party.
Yeah, we
and
have
that's
a
why it's
shorthand
important.
term for that, us lawyers do. It's called forum shopping. And it's actually, even though theoretically it's discouraged, it's what happens in almost every significant case. Every significant class action lawsuit, every significant case against anyone in the government is going to be brought in a venue that they've researched and like.
Now, there have been a couple rulings. And if they're going to say, well, I wasn't biased against President Trump. Now, I have seen President Trump's depositions. I've seen the way he follows court instructions. To call him a difficult client would be an understatement. And I don't think I could work with him in the sense that I could be his attorney representing him, because he wouldn't listen to me. And I need a client to listen to me. And I don't think any of his attorneys.
Do you not remember our days at the public defender's office? None of those clients would listen to us.
They would say and do things that hurt them. Now, President Trump, in his history with lawyers, he's hurt himself on many occasions. And sitting there now, a couple of the rulings in this trial were absolutely unfair and egregious. The first one is the gag order. The gag order should apply to everybody. If you're going to do it, it has to apply to everybody. Trump had a gag order. All the witnesses against Trump didn't. So they were saying and doing what they wanted to do. And when it was brought up to the judge, listen, the gag order needs to be universal. No, I don't see it. And he would request. This is what he would say. And this is, are you out of your mind to go, well, I'm asking the witness, please try not to do it. What does that mean? I can do whatever I want to do. So there was absolutely nothing that kept the other people from going online, especially Cohen. Attorney Cohen selling T-shirts.
Evidence, if you like you need it anymore, but isn't that evidence of extreme bias?
Okay, that was the one. But that wasn't the worst one. The worst issue I ever had with him, with this judge, he did two things. The second one I think affected this trial, maybe even more. He starts commenting and having an issue with the president's expert witness. And he did something that is unbelievably, I'll use the word squirrely. The expert witness is on the stand. The expert witness happens to be a lawyer. Now, the worst thing about, I've had to testify as a lawyer on the stand. And the worst thing about being a lawyer is we know the law. So we know when things are wrong. And judges can claim, oh, I'm the expert of the law. You're not the expert of the law. You just happen to get the job.
Yeah.
I want you to know something. I'm going to be straight with a lot of you judges. I've taken a ridiculous amount of bars. I know a lot more law than some of the guys getting these jobs. Now, this expert, who is a pretty smart attorney, very solid attorney, he's an expert in his field, ridiculous. He's sitting there and the judge is ruling against him. Just the rulings are ridiculous, but the judges can make whatever rulings they want to. And he's shaking his head. And he's like, what? And the judge goes, let's move the jury out of here. I'm right about to say something that the jury should not hear, which is absolutely fine. That's exactly what the judge should do. He should not say anything that affects the jury's decision or makes the jury believe that the credibility of a witness or anything else. He moves them out. But then he does something else. And dude, hold on, dude. I'm going to call you dude. I know you're a judge. Dude, when you say, okay, now all the reporters get out. Because he wants to do something that he could deny that he did. That only the parties could say he did or didn't do. He didn't want somebody who's going to report this bad conduct. And he tells the witness, starts berating him for giving him faces, and then says, I'm going to kick all your testimony if you do this, which he can't do. He doesn't have the authority. The witness is not a party to the case.
Right. Only a party can do something egregious enough to have a judge kick out his or her own evidence. A witness, the best he could do on that is strike the testimony of the witness. But either way, he's just begging for a mistrial. Another mistrial, by the way.
This is an action. This is an absolute action. And if you're an attorney and you disagree with this, then just give up your bar license because you know you're lying. This action is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen a judge do, because he's basically saying this: listen, I know what I'm right about to do is wrong, and I don't want any witnesses. And you know when this happens? This normally happens when he says, hey, let's go in chambers.
Jeff, do you think there is any chance that the judge was just over the top bias because deep down in his heart, he really doesn't want Trump to get convicted and serve prison time? He wants the conviction to come from this jury, but he doesn't actually want him to serve any prison time because that would be incredibly unjust. So he does all of these things that just absolutely beg for a mistrial. And that way he can go back to his friends, his daughter's friends, and say, hey, listen, I did everything I could to try and get this guy convicted, and it's not my fault that the appellate court let him go.
I think you give too much kindness. I think you're absolutely wrong. It is my personal opinion that this judge used his authority in such an egregious way and absolutely did not care. Absolutely was politically motivated, absolutely did everything in his power to make sure this would wind up the way it did. And in fact, let's move to the next one.
Why wouldn't he disguise some of the obvious biasness, though?
Because he doesn't care. He doesn't want to disguise it. He wanted people to know exactly who he was. He's never going to say, look what I did, guys, because we know what you did. As a lawyer, as watching this trial, I was stunned, but I absolutely knew what was going to happen. And here's the thing, Your Honor. You didn't have to do it. The jury would have found him guilty anyway.
Yeah, that's the funny thing.
You didn't have to be the 13th member of that jury.
Yeah, no kidding.
He had to win. You had everything skewed the way you wanted to skew it. But this is, remember the old mob movies? Remember The Untouchables? There was a scene in The Untouchables where they find out that
the movie with Kevin Costner?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where Capone has paid off all the jury. And they swap the jury. And Capone loses his mind. And everyone got paid, even the judge in the case, even he was trying to show that the judge was on the take too. So the judge was on the take, the jury was on the take, and they had to swap the judges. Yeah. And then they basically threatened the judge to say that we're going to show that you were on the take.
The actual crime is the falsification of business records. And that in and of itself is a misdemeanor. And the statute of limitations for that misdemeanor would have run sometime 2018, 2019.
It expired.
So it is a crime and becomes a felony if it is in furtherance of another crime. And so here we have even more of this behavior by the judge, because the judge instructed the jury that, well, listen, the crime that these misdemeanors were in furtherance of, you all don't actually have to agree on what crime that was. Every legal scholar on every channel I watched could not believe that this was the judge's instruction to the jury.
In a criminal case, a unanimous decision is normally the norm. It is the norm. You can't, that's why having the one guy fight against everybody else, to kill a mockingbird, everything, the one dude who's willing to go, you shall not pass. The judge took that away and goes, well, if it's 444, if it's 333, it was like you're making up the law as we go to benefit.
It's absolutely what it was.
And that's number 4 or 5 of the big ones. Now, the fifth one, which the Stormy Daniels testimony.
Yeah, so keep in mind, the entire trial is about whether or not
falsifying a record.
The characterization of the payment to his lawyer, either it's a campaign contribution or it's a legal expense. It's one of those two things.
Yeah.
They called it a legal expense. And the argument was it should have been characterized as a campaign contribution, which ironically, one of the crimes that they could have found him guilty of was that he falsely reported his income, and by virtue of falsely reporting his income, paid too much in taxes.
They bring her forward. They've already said, listen, we don't want you to put this in. The judge is going to, I'll shut it down if it gets too much.
Never shut it down. Never shut it down.
Her testimony, she gets on, well, he didn't wear a condom. Okay, I'm not sure why that had anything to do with the case. And then she does something worse. She claims she believes she blacked out during sex, which meant that now Trump has raped her. That is now evidence put in front of a jury that not only is he supposedly lies on his taxes and lies on this form, but he's also a rapist.
And further grounds for a mistrial, which keeps bringing me back to this theory that maybe this judge really doesn't want Trump to actually go to prison, and he's just making sure that he's so over the top biased, so over the top incorrect with his rulings that he's going to have to get a new trial.
Now, at this point right now of the trial, when this young woman, she might have been raped, I don't know. But when she accuses him of rape in the middle of this trial, that's when you get a mistrial. That's when the party is over. No more. We're going to retry this. We're not going to put this in front of a jury. So now you have 6, 7, 8 different problems. And the reason why you have these problems is because it's not a clean trial. You have so much hokum going on where where we have legal experts. You and I together aren't quite sure what this is about. And that's when you know you have a problem. That's when you know that somebody is trying to take advantage of the law when even lawyers don't understand what this case is about. Even after studying it, we're trying to figure out what the underlying crime is. And this isn't even like a civil case. This is a case that involves somebody's freedom. In a criminal trial, you need it to be clean. You need to be at least be able to understand what he's being charged with and what they call the prima facie requirements. Those are the things I have to decide before I find somebody guilty. And I dare, and I've listened to legal scholars all over, everywhere, CNN, Fox, MSNBC. Nobody can tell me what the actual underlying crime is because nobody gets it. Because you know why? It's a BS crime. And when you have 12 jurors and a judge who hate this guy, there's no way you can have a fair trial.